individualized foster care, and that is for children who need an increased level of behavior management. There is therapeutic foster care, which is a residential behavioral management service provided in foster home settings. It's designed to serve children ages 3 to 18 with special psychological, social, behavioral, and emotional needs. Then there is respite care, which is where the child stays with another resource foster care family to give another resource foster care parents a short break. There is emergency foster care, which involves a child who must be removed immediately from his or her home. There's tribal foster care, which is basically designed for registered Indians. And there is supportive family living, which is for children who have intellectual or development disabilities. And then there's adoption, which is basically just for anyone that their parents have been taken away their rights or they're no longer living, so they can be put with an adoptive family. There are several reasons why children get put in foster care. There's abuse, neglect, abandonment, drug abuse, parents being arrested, death, termination of parental rights, harmful environment, caretaker inability such as like illness, substance abuse, and severe behavioral problems in the child. So basically, here's some of what life might be like for a foster care child. After they are removed from parents or guardian, they are placed in an available foster home. If there's nothing available, they'd be put in a foster home or an emergency foster care. They will continue to be in foster care until their parents or guardians are cleared to have them returned to their custody. If that happens, during that time, those children can live in multiple foster homes and or shelters in the same or different counties. It can be anything but consistent for those children. During that time, they might attend several schools or have like large gaps in enrollment, as well as sometimes there are good foster homes, as well as there's some bad foster homes. I have a couple of videos. This first one's kind of about the rough side of foster care. There's a couple boys in here that didn't have such a good experience with foster care. I had it all working. I don't know why it wasn't working. It was loud too.
Blast us out and then we'll.
Oh wait. Maybe I don't know. Working.
Is it, hit the volume, yeah, hit that one hard. No, it's up all the way. Well, I had trouble with this, I thought it was my computer. See if you can get the sound without this. Just to see, yeah.
Never uncovered is a system designed to help, but a system which is becoming overwhelming.
I think it's these wires.
Go boys. Alton Aerosmith and younger brother Adriel are former foster children removed from their biological home because their parents were heroin addicts.
Walking into the doors of my first foster home was just utter depression.
Bounced from home to home, the brothers have seen the ugly side of the foster care system.
I complained to them that it was dirty. Me and my brother literally we were only allowed to take showers every 2 days. And we had to share the same towel. But it's mostly just being verbally beat. Foster parents that they just tell you.
It's not running. Well, I know it quit. Oh, it didn't quit. That's weird.
One time she said, I could put soap in a sock and beat you. marks.
To prevent such incidents, foster parents have to take parenting classes, become certified by the state, and pass a background check.
The ones who are the best foster parents do it because they have a genuine concern for children and they want to help children.
We realized how many kids were out there that were just great kids. They just needed, they need a safe place to be.
Melissa and Jim have been fostering in Greene County for about 4 years. They believe so-called bad foster parents are rare.
You have to do it because it's in your heart. It can't be for any other reason.
It's too difficult otherwise.
Yeah.
We have some children where we suspect they may be deliberately sabotaging their placement because they don't want to be there. And we understand that.
Child Protective Services admits sometimes problems do arise and a kid or two may have slipped through the cracks. But anytime a case of abuse or neglect is brought up, they say a caseworker always investigates it.
That's very important to us, that kids are in a safe environment, not in a cluttered home, not in a situation where they don't have food or they feel that they don't have clothing, because we do provide those things for our kids.
In Montgomery County, caseworkers are assigned about 16 different cases. Greene County caseworkers juggle about 10 at a time. Keep in mind, each case can contain multiple children, and every foster kid must get a monthly home visit.
I think that our caseworkers do a good job of staying on top of what's going on in the family.
On average, foster parents like Jim and Melissa get about $20 a day per child to cover food, clothing, and other living expenses.
Yeah, if you're doing it for the money, it's not worth it. It's way too much work for the money.
Other ways.
You should just get a job.
Jim and Melissa are one of 36 homes that care for Greene County's 85 foster kids. In Montgomery County, much larger numbers, only about 350 foster families for more than 660 children in crisis. Statewide, CPS is admittedly desperate for more foster parents, but only those who will guarantee a safe environment like this one. Liza Danver, Fox 45 News.
To report child abuse, or if you'd like.
This one's a little bit more uplifting.
My mom never fed us. It was hard. Your mouth was always dry. My siblings cried and begged for food. They're scared, they're hungry, they're always crying. And I got enough money to get them food, clothing. It was hard because nobody really cared for them. And it was hard for me to provide because I was only 11. I was at summer school and a police car showed up with a DHS worker, and they came in and talked to me and said that we're leaving. I could hear my sisters crying before they got in the car. They kept saying, "Bubba, Bubba, what's wrong? What's wrong? Where's Nanny? Nanny?" She said, "Bubba, I want to go home. I want to go home." And cried, and it was hard. Every time a DHS worker said that we were moving, it felt like getting hit by a car. I moved 6 times in 6 months. I kept moving back and forth, and I thought soon I might be going back to the shelter. But this family, they held me when anything I asked for. They prayed for me. It was like God's love has come in to my house. I would like to challenge you guys from my story. Compare a home and a shelter and what you can do to change a child's life. My family changed mine, and you can do one too.
I'm Jill, and I'm JJ's adoptive mom. And I just want to tell you that when God called us to it, at first, my husband and I said no. We did not feel like we had what it took to be a foster parent. We especially didn't feel like we had what it took to foster older children. But the more God put it on our hearts, the more He showed us what His plan was for our family. I know there are others out there that God is calling to this. All you have to do is say yes, and He will take care of all the rest of it.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what those foster parents have to go through in order to become foster parents. OKDHS has a list of requirements before you can even start the process. You have to be at least 21 years of age, preferably no more than 55 years older than the child considered for placement. You have to have a healthy relationship, whether married, single, separated, or divorced. Have the ability to manage personal and household financial needs without relying on the foster care reimbursement. To fulfill the OKDHS policy on background investigations for all household members 13 years and older by completion of criminal history background checks. There must be no history of alleged or confirmed child abuse, neglect, or sexual abuse. You have to have a working vehicle. You have to provide appropriate sleeping arrangements for each child placed. Be in good physical and mental health. Provide references. Complete all required training in a timely manner. You're not supposed to smoke in the home or automobile while the child is present. Comply with OKDHS rules on discipline, and be able to work as part of a team with social workers and biological parents. Basically, all foster parents are required to complete 27 hours of pre-service training and complete 12 hours of additional training every year. I did my interviews with 3 different foster care families, and for the purpose of this, I'll just call them A, B, and C. Family A, they do adoption, emergency, and full-time, ages 0 to 5 years, and they have fostered 19 infants and toddlers since September of 2011. Family B does adoption, emergency, and full-time, ages 0 to 16 years, and they have fostered 1 infant and 1 toddler since July 2013. Family C just does full-time, ages 5 years and up, and they have fostered 5 children since 2011. And basically, Family A, they became foster parents in September of 2011 because they wanted to help kids and couldn't have kids of their own. They were approved 90 days after they initially signed up and proceeded to do adoption for a year before beginning emergency and full-time. However, after they decided to become full-time foster parents, they received their first 2 kids after only 2 weeks. All of their foster care infants and toddlers have either been exposed to drugs or born with drugs in their systems. The 2 most common have been alcohol and meth. The son that they adopted through this, he came to them at 8 weeks with fetal alcohol syndrome. And they've also had toddlers with severe behavior issues due to abuse. But at the end of it all, they said that it was, in the end, it's just completely worth it. Family B became foster parents just in July because God had made it clear to them that they needed help with orphans. The process was about 7 months before receiving the current 2 kids. Both the infant and toddler dealt with ear infections and have behavioral issues after visitations with their dad. They also said the same thing as the first family. Family C, they became foster parents in 2011 because they wanted to get back to the community and had previously been host family for exchange students. The foster dad had been in foster care as a child himself. Their process was a year before receiving their first foster children. They've struggled with their kids having a lack of nutrition, having lived in an unclean environment, and a history of abuse. But they said what they've learned from it is just an understanding of the importance of just of a solid family. So those were, they're all very good foster families. So there are many, many good foster families that kids can go to. In order for a child to be reunited with their family, the foster care system will help the family address the problems that got the child removed as long as the rights have not been terminated. So if that means going to certain meetings or anything that helps them solve either the problems of an unclean environment or just anything that they need in order to get their children back and for the foster care system to feel like they should. There's a lot of problems within the system. Like the first video said, there's a lot of children aren't completely treated correctly. I don't think that there's enough pre-service hours for foster parents to be able to completely understand what is going on with the children in their home. There's a lot of problems that go on, and we go to school for 4 years to learn about those problems. I don't think 27 hours is enough. Children can get lost in the system. as some of the kids that I've talked to that are in foster care, that some of them, that's how they feel. They just don't feel like they're individually there. And once a teenager turns a certain age, they do not get nearly the amount of attention they need to be able to move forward in life. And children are moved way too many times. Foster care within itself is a solution to helping children whose families are not able to take care of them properly. I came up with some solutions to the problem. Some of them just aren't all that realistic, but we could hire more social workers to be able to have the ability to keep a closer eye on foster children in their homes. As the video shared, there's a lot of, each social worker has so many cases, and it'd be so hard to have an eye on all of them all the time. Require more training hours with many specifics on how to understand and be able to care for the foster children. Make sure each child is seen through the system completely with programs to help them transition into adult life. And I know some communities have those, but not all of them. And I thought of maybe a placement questionnaire where after a child is put in its first foster home, maybe they could do a questionnaire with them, and have already done questionnaires with foster families to try to match the children with a good family that they might actually be able to stay in until it's time to go home. And I said the problem will never go away. We'll always have to do stuff like this because sin always exists, and that's what a lot of those parents are having to deal with. So why? The Bible says in James 1:27, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Psalms 82:3 says to defend the cause of the weak and fatherless and maintain the rights of the poor and the oppressed. Any questions?
What made you want to pick this topic?
Actually, Family A is my husband's cousins, and they're the ones that have all the babies with a lot of the health issues and everything like that. And I met their first two back in September 2011, and they were these beautiful twin girls. But they were sexually abused, and they just couldn't function properly at 3. And since then, I've seen most of their foster kids, and it breaks your heart. But I loved being able to play with them, help them, getting to see some of their milestones, and I just thought I'm more interested in the younger kids, but the older kids are very important too. And me and my husband have been talking about maybe doing it someday with the Indians.
Native Americans. So do you have to be Native American in Oklahoma to do that?
Otherwise, they can remove the child
Mm-hmm.
at any point, even after adoption. It's crazy.
There's that huge thing in the news about the baby that they were fighting over. There was a couple in North Carolina or somewhere that adopted the baby. And the dad had initially expressed not having an interest in adopting, and then he decided he did. And it's still it's not really up in the air. The court decided that the little girl could go back to the adopted parents, but the
dad had her.
The dad had gotten her back for it was probably a year or two, and now the state's suing him for the money that they spent to defend. It's a mess. It's really horrible. And he actually came out in the paper, I got to give him credit, and said he decided, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but he decided it would be better not to fight it anymore. I'm sure he ran out of money too. But well, the tribe actually probably bankrolled most of that for him. But it's really hard for parents to let go, and then dealing with those kids. You said that after Family A decided to adopt, they got their first kids. Do you mean they adopted 2 kids?
No, those were their first.
Foster kids.
They didn't adopt. They got him. I don't know how much. Maybe 5 or 6 months after they had their first 2 foster kids. before they actually got one that was up for adoption. And it took them, I think, a year in order to actually get him adopted. But those were his foster. They just sat with adoption for a year and nothing happened, and then they got him after they got foster kids.
Where'd you find the video, the one with the kid wearing the Thunder T-shirt? Where did you find that one?
Oh, YouTube.
Oh, just you found it. It looked like in Oklahoma.
I don't know where it was.
Can you
shot
send
at.
me the link for that? That's really awesome.
The boy, right? The
Yeah.
walking. Okay. Yeah, I can. Yeah, it was just YouTube.
I can look it up too. I
I
just
just
thought
typed in foster care stories. And
it was a
what
good.
popped up.
Well, it's really a great story because it always helps me to orient myself toward how urgent the problem is, and yet you got to have the training, and that's why I beat it into you guys to get all the training you can get while you're in school, because that even 4 years isn't going to prepare you for what you're really going to deal with completely, but at least you've got more experience that way in the real world. With it's not really about traded in points, it's about life points. Getting out there and doing that. And it's I did a family promise presentation about homeless kids and their families, and that's what Amy and I were talking about afterwards, how it's okay, it's probably going to take a year. We always tell them it's going to take a year to 2 years. There's no hurry. And then I just want to add, because they're just homeless people. Who cares? Or that they're people are dying out there. But that's okay. We'll wait until you make a decision. And I know it's not fair, but it does when you really realize the need is so great. It's almost impossible to hold yourself back once you get connected with people. How did you manage to were you interested in foster care because, is that what I don't remember what you said to Amber, but.
His cousins really strike the interest, and specifically with drug babies was kind of not that that's necessarily who you get, that's just they live in Sapulpa, and that is their, I don't know, that's just what they get. They had 14 infants, and they were all exposed or had it in their systems, and that's just their area. But yeah, because before that I have several friends that grew up through the system, and they will talk nothing but bad about it. They did it as teenagers, and they had terrible foster homes, and I know some of the foster homes, and I know where they're coming from. So I was very turned off by teenagers, and so I don't know if I would ever do teenagers after that, but.
Well, I think that's what I always lobbied for in the foster care system in Kansas, that they needed special training. In fact, I think you're exactly right. All foster parents need special and ongoing training, because you need it as you go. And I think Kansas probably does require some ongoing stuff. But back to your comment about the drug babies, it's kind of driven by why they remove kids. They don't remove kids because they were from a trashy home. They remove kids because somebody said there's a life and limb issue. Sexually abuse to me is a life and limb issue, or physical abuse is life, and drug addiction is a life and limb issue, because the druggy parents they could have the best intentions in the world in their hearts, because there really are good people that are drug addicts, but they can't make good decisions without that. So
Most of them they take home from the hospital because
Yeah.
they found it in their systems. And
they're already exposed. Yeah. And it's huge. I don't know what the percentage is now, but I know in California at one time it was like in LA, one of the hospitals there, it was unbelievable the number of babies that came in that had drugs in their system. It's almost impossible to deal with. There aren't enough foster parents in the world to take all these kids.